Today, at 3:50 p.m. local time, the strategic balance in Eastern Europe and Asia faced a significant development. Ukrainian intelligence allegedly leaked classified details of a covert $7 billion operation involving China and Russia. The revelation, which international observers are still assessing, has reportedly prompted serious concern and immediate evaluations within Moscow's and Beijing's political and military circles. This event highlights a familiar pattern in modern geopolitics. While secrecy functions as a critical currency, historical precedents show that even the most well-concealed operations are eventually exposed. The operation, which Ukrainian intelligence sources claim had been under surveillance for several months, was reportedly designed specifically to sustain Russia's war economy and its ongoing military assault amid international sanctions. According to the initial intelligence briefings, the plan involved a complex network of financial, logistical, and technological exchanges. These exchanges were allegedly disguised under commercial and humanitarian fronts to avoid detection. Through this arrangement, China was reportedly funneling advanced dual-use technologies, precision components, and energy resources into Russian hands. This was all conducted under the cover of legitimate trade routes that appeared benign to external observers. The transfers allegedly ranged from advanced optics for drones to specialized microchips utilized in modern missile systems, items crucial for Russia's military-industrial complex to continue its strikes. According to the released intelligence, this $7 billion operation centered on an intricate supply chain. It spanned from China's northeastern industrial regions, moved through Central Asia, and terminated in southern Russia. The network leveraged state-owned enterprises, newly created shell corporations, and specific maritime routes to disguise these high-value transfers. The scale of the network would imply state-level coordination and, according to Ukrainian analysts, direct political authorization from Beijing. This suggests it was not merely an economic project, but a strategic extension of China's influence in the Eurasian theater. Ukraine's intelligence directorate, known for its sophisticated cyber capabilities, reportedly intercepted communications and satellite data, confirming the operation. This effort involved parallel investigations by the Security Service of Ukraine and the main intelligence directorate, which focused on Russian financial and military logistics. Cyber experts, analysts, and field informants worked to piece together fragments of intercepted data, maritime manifests, and trade documentation. A significant breakthrough allegedly occurred when Ukrainian cyber units infiltrated a digital communications relay. This relay was reportedly operated by a Chinese state-linked shipping company. Inside this network, they claim to have uncovered encrypted contracts and cargo data tied directly to Russian military suppliers already under Western sanctions. These digital findings were then cross-referenced with satellite imagery, reportedly provided through international partnerships, including data from private aerospace companies and allied intelligence agencies. The imagery analysis reportedly revealed unusually heavy freight movements along railway lines connecting China's Xinjiang province with Russia's Altai region. These routes had previously shown minimal economic activity. By analyzing the patterns of movement, Ukraine's intelligence analysts concluded that these were not ordinary trade shipments, but high-value deliveries with clear military applications. One intelligence officer described the operation as meticulous, surgical, and deeply layered, noting that financial records appeared to suggest that billions of dollars flowed through disguised transactions using cryptocurrency exchanges and offshore accounts. Officials in Kyiv have been cautious about disclosing exact sources, but emphasized that the leak was a deliberate, calculated move. It was timed just days after renewed diplomatic pressure from the West, urging Beijing to distance itself from Moscow. The primary goal was to expose the depth of China's involvement in supporting Russia's war effort. Beyond mere exposure, security analysts in Kyiv suggest this intelligence leak is part of a broader psychological operation. The campaign is reportedly designed to fracture the trust between Russia and China. By publicizing the details of the covert cooperation, Ukraine aims to plant seeds of suspicion in both capitals. The calculation is that if Beijing doubts Moscow's ability to maintain secrecy, or if Moscow questions Beijing's discretion, the alliance could begin to erode from within. In strategic conflicts, such fractures can be highly decisive. This strategy fits into a broader pattern of Ukraine's intelligence warfare. Over the past year, Kiev has increasingly utilized information to expose Russian vulnerabilities, intercept secret communications, and reveal the depth of Moscow's reliance on its allies. This information counteroffensive has proven to be a potent component of Ukraine's defense. Each leak is carefully timed to coincide with diplomatic shifts or major military movements, amplifying its impact on the global stage. For President Putin's administration, if the details are accurate, the leak represents a significant setback. For months, the Kremlin had relied heavily on Chinese economic and logistical backing to keep its military machine running amid mounting sanctions. The partnership with Beijing was viewed as a critical lifeline. With the operation now exposed, that lifeline is suddenly in jeopardy, and what once operated in the shadows has become a public liability. Reactions from Moscow were predictably defensive. Russian state media quickly dismissed the report as Western disinformation, orchestrated by Ukraine and NATO intelligence agencies. However, unverified internal sources suggest a different story. Within hours of the leak, emergency meetings were reportedly held in the Kremlin and the Russian Ministry of Defense to assess the potential damage. Russian financial regulators began reviewing transactions linked to Chinese partners, fearing secondary sanctions or the freezing of international accounts connected to the exposed operation. Kremlin insiders reportedly admitted that the leak exposed vulnerabilities in Russia's dependency structure. The administration had built a narrative of resilience, an idea that Russia could withstand sanctions due to its alliances. The revelation undermines its self-portrayal as an independent power, painting a picture of a regime increasingly reliant on external support to continue its objectives in Ukraine. The exposure also reportedly deepened internal divisions, with security officials allegedly accusing financial ministries of failing to secure sensitive transactions, and military leaders expressing frustration over the potential loss of crucial Chinese components. In Beijing, the official silence has been notable. The Chinese Foreign Ministry issued a brief statement rejecting any unlawful cooperation with sanctioned states, but stopped short of addressing the specifics of Ukraine's claims. Behind closed doors, Chinese intelligence agencies are believed to be conducting internal audits and damage assessments. The exposure not only jeopardizes China's financial stake, but also threatens its global reputation at a time when it is already under scrutiny. This places Beijing in a strategic dilemma. Some factions reportedly warned that continued association with Russia could draw China into deeper confrontation with the West, potentially threatening its global economic ambitions. Others argued that Beijing must stand firm, portraying the exposure as an attempt to fracture Eurasian unity. Analysts note subtle but significant diplomatic shifts. Chinese state media began downplaying references to Russia's war, focusing instead on calls for peaceful dialogue. Joint military exercises were also reportedly postponed without official explanation. The international reaction was swift, as Western nations have long pressed Beijing to refrain from providing material assistance to Russia. In Washington, the US State Department released an emergency statement calling the reports deeply concerning and demanding immediate clarification from Beijing. European Union leaders echoed the sentiment, emphasizing that any nation aiding Russia's war effort would face severe and coordinated consequences. NATO officials held a closed-door meeting to discuss both economic and cyber response. Within 24 hours, several Chinese conglomerates reportedly saw their overseas subsidiaries scrutinized by Western regulators. Financial analysts predicted potential freezes on Chinese trade credits and tightened export controls. The European Union and the United States are reportedly preparing new sanctions targeting Chinese intermediaries involved in the operation. If enforced, these measures could disrupt China's trade routes across Eurasia, including segments of its Belt and Road Initiative that intersect Russian territory. Furthermore, Western intelligence agencies soon moved to verify many of Ukraine's findings. A joint intelligence assessment was reportedly coordinated, confirming that China had been covertly assisting Russia's military-industrial complex. The document reportedly cited at least 20 Chinese companies involved in transactions that collectively exceeded $7 billion over an 18-month period. This verification lent further credibility to Kiev's assertions and renewed momentum for accelerating aid packages to Ukraine. This leak significantly strengthens Ukraine's diplomatic hand. By unveiling the secret operation, Kyiv not only demonstrates its intelligence prowess, but also reinforces its narrative of defending international law against an aggression that affects not just its territory, but global stability. It reframes Ukraine's struggle not merely as a national defense effort, but as a global issue of covert aggression. This moral high ground gives Kyiv renewed leverage in discussions with its Western partners, particularly regarding long-term defense commitments. Analysts argue that this strategic leak marks a turning point in information warfare. Ukraine has consistently demonstrated mastery over digital intelligence. By merging this intelligence with public diplomacy, Kyiv has transformed transparency into a strategic weapon. The act of revealing the truth itself becomes a strategic strike, eroding the opponent's credibility and destabilizing their alliances. It underscores how 21st century conflict extends beyond conventional armaments into cyberspace, finance, and perception. The exposure also has broader implications for the Indo-Pacific region. Nations wary of Beijing's growing reach are re-evaluating their diplomatic posture. If China is willing to engage in clandestine support for Russia, it raises questions about the nature of its global ambitions. Trust in Beijing's neutrality and commercial transparency could erode, complicating its trade relations across multiple continents. As the situation continues to unfold, critical questions remain. How deep did this cooperation run? Were there parallel networks operating under different covers, yet to be discovered? If Ukraine's intelligence community could uncover and expose this operation, what else might they know? While the full extent and verification of these claims are still developing, the realization for Beijing and Moscow may be more alarming than the leak itself. The long-term consequence may be a slow unraveling of alliances built on secrecy, demonstrating that in an era of digital transparency, even the most guarded operations can become instruments of their own destruction.